Welcome to the Young Lions podcast and talk show. This is your host, AC Cordell. Thank you for joining us today. Hey everybody, this is AC with the Young Lions podcast and talk show. I'm here with my special guest today, a longtime friend, Mr. Tom Ray. Goes by pastor, goes by doctor. To me, he's my friend. So today I want to welcome Tom from Real Leadership Company here in the Detroit area. Tom, welcome. Welcome to Young Lions podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, AC, for having me on the Young Lions.
Glad to be a part. Awesome, man. Listen, I just kind of set the tone for some of the people. Tom and I, as kids, grew up together here in Michigan, attending the same youth camps together. And our dads pastored in the same state together. And so we've known each other for quite a few years. I'd say a year or two at least, right?
At least.
And Tom also serves as a worship pastor at Evangel here in Roseville area. And so I'm just glad to have my friend Tom with me today. Tom, I want to talk about something that you may know a little bit about. It's called leadership.
Yes.
You know a little bit about it, right?
A little bit about it.
Well, I want to talk about this John Maxwell event that you guys were just at, because I have friends all over the country that were there at the same time you were there. Talk to me a little bit about the conference, and then we'll talk about John Maxwell after that as well.
Sure thing. So the conference was August the 23rd through the 26th. And the event started on Friday of this past August 23rd, I believe that was. And it was just all day from morning till night. In fact, it felt like I was there for a week because of being inside the hotel all day long and not seeing the light of day. But it was information overload. It's like drinking water from a fire hose. It was just spectacular. It was enriching. It was just all those things. It was encouraging. They have something called the the Maxwell DNA, and that is the showing respect for one another and loving one another and encouraging one another. And it was just an awesome event, and surrounded by about 3,100 other people going through the same program. It was pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. Now, where was it at? Was it in Florida somewhere?
Yes, it was in Orlando at the biggest Marriott hotel in the world, I believe. The place is huge, huge conference rooms, and just a wonderful facility.
Now, what caused you to connect with John Maxwell? I mean, I know me personally. I've known him for years. I've got a lot of his books. He has been a huge influence in my life as far as leadership concerned. But what is something that draws John Maxwell to you, or what are you drawn to him about?
Well, first, I need to give props to my second dad, Michael Joyce, who is a mentor, role model of mine. Back in 1996, I believe it was, he held a leadership training, and it was Developing the Leader Within You by John Maxwell. Mm-hmm. And that was as far as I remember, that was my first exposure to leadership. And I was hooked from that moment on. And not only seeing or reading the books from John Maxwell, but also seeing Michael Joyce, Pastor Michael Joyce, being that role model and living that leadership role in front of me, really impacted my life. And so everything that I read from John Maxwell, I just became addicted to, and it's been something that's been a passion of mine for so many years. And it's pretty funny. In the past about a year or so, there's been a new enlightenment to that, if I can use that word. It's as if I've been going through life not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, as far as in this role of leadership, because it's such a passion of mine. I just get so passionate about it, and it brings me to life, and I love connecting with people and seeing the light bulb come on in their heads and seeing them helped and becoming unstuck from wherever they are in their life. And real quick, if I can throw this in, while we were in Orlando, it was a 2-for-1 deal. I was not only going to be certified as a coach and trainer and speaker, but I was also celebrating the 28th wedding anniversary with my childhood sweetheart.
Yes, can't forget that.
Absolutely not.
She would have us both after this podcast.
Absolutely. So, and she's a rock in my life, and she's just so wonderful. And she's helped me to become the man I am today.
Sure.
And so I gotta give her some props.
Yeah,
Love you, babe.
And congratulations on, you said 28th, right?
Yeah, 28
Wow.
years.
Awesome.
In fact, the 25th of August, when I was sitting in the hotel going through the certification, she was nearby, waiting for me to come home. So we got to spend a day together while we were in Orlando, and we went to Discovery Cove and got to swim with the dolphins and some other things. And so that was really wonderful. But she's my rock, and I love her to pieces.
Awesome. It's good to have that type of person in your life, especially for that amount of time. Well, let me ask you now, your company, Real Leadership Company, you have a co-founder with you. You have another partner. You want to share with us about your partner?
Yeah. So what if I, just roll it back a little bit and kind of talk about the beginning of this. I had this word in my spirit, this word called stuck, or unstuck rather.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people that are stuck in their life, stuck in their marriage situation, stuck in their, as a pastor, stuck as a CEO, just stuck, right? And they're not growing to the next level. And so this was just in my spirit. And I remember a Sunday back in June, I believe, I was preaching a message, and for 30 seconds during this message, I shared, you may be stuck, but God wants to unstuck you, something to that effect. And then I moved on. Well, on Wednesday following that Sunday, a gentleman in our church came up to me, a very quiet person, and he came to me and said, when you were preaching about being stuck, it impacted my life. I went home and I dreamed this dream that I was in this pickup truck, and the rear end of the axles of the truck were stuck in the mud. And God was lifting me up and out of that mud and getting me unstuck. And he said, so now I want to join your choir at the church. And so it's pretty fantastic. So he's still a part of the choir and still doing that still to this day. And so it really helped him move forward. Well, then I started talking to my brother-in-law, Bert Koppel, and telling him about what I was experiencing. And then I went to the Moody Bible Institute for what I thought was a church growth seminar. And when I got there, Mark Job was there doing a teaching and gave us all a book. Guess what that book was called?
Unstuck, of course.
Unstuck. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. I said, man, God, you have such a sense of humor here. And so he talked about getting unstuck, and the whole situation behind that was just wonderful. And so I told my brother-in-law, and then at the same time, I had been listening to podcasts by John Maxwell, and they were talking about the IMC, the International Maxwell Certification that was coming up. And as I began to talk more with my brother-in-law, Bert, this idea of going and paying the money and getting certified seemed pointless if there wasn't more to it. And so as me and him discussed it more, we actually came up with Unstuck University. And out of that, we came up with Real Leadership Company. So that's my brother-in-law, Bert Koppel, and I are both co-founders of the Real Leadership Company. And we're excited about what's going on. We just started what's called a mastermind this past Saturday. And I think we have a coaching gig coming up pretty soon here. And it's just exciting and about where this roller coaster is going to take us.
Awesome. Well, I know that you guys are also doing blogs and podcasts and stuff. How can our listeners connect with you guys on that to be able to listen to a lot of you? Well, I'm calling them podcasts. I know that you're using different formats, but how can they listen to your podcast to be able to hear more about leadership and what you guys are doing?
Well, currently they can go to our website at realleadershipcompany.com and click on, I believe, blog currently. We've been using a WordPress scenario, but recording it. And so it's a blog podcast, I guess you'd say. But I've been in the process of actually morphing that also into a podcast, which, by the way, you can check out one of our recordings on Spotify. It may be available elsewhere, but right now I know that it's on Spotify. So you can check us out there with the one episode and more to come. But otherwise, just go to our website. That's where the hub of information is for everything that we got going on with the company, including the podcast.
Awesome. So you're talking about this new event that you have coming up, or that you just started recently. How can people get involved with any of your upcoming events, or if they want to be coached by one of you guys or mentored? What is the process for that?
Again, going to realleadershipcompany.com. All of our information is right there, where they can contact us for any information that they would need, including masterminds or bringing us into their workplace to hold masterminds there, or their church groups, or whatever the case would be, as well as coaching. We can do one-on-one coaching, or we can do group coaching, whatever the case may be. We just want to be a benefit and help people and add value to them and make them feel awesome and get them moving so they can be productive either for their company or for their marriage or for their life.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
There's a motto in the John Maxwell team, and that is this will help everybody. And this is what it is. You ready for it? Drum roll.
Yeah.
Jump and build your wings on the way down.
Wow.
Jump and build your wings on the way down. So many times we hold back and we don't press forward because we're afraid of failure. One of the other things that's talked about is learning from our mistakes, failing forward, not falling forward, failing forward. Because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fail. It's going to be tough. It's not always going to work out. But if we learn from those mistakes, we can fail forward and grow to the next level.
Listen, one of the things that I've understood over the years in studying and even my time in school about leadership is understanding a couple of things that I think are very key for businesses, ministry, even personal life. And I wanted to get your viewpoint on it. And that is, in order to have a healthy culture as far as business mentality, you have to have a strong identity. And I feel like a lot of people in general, and a lot of businesses, even churches today, are struggling finding an identity of who they are and who they want to be, and even what they're called to be. And so give us some insight right now on cultivating and building that culture of having a strong identity.
That's where everything comes to a head. We have to know who we are. Could you imagine being a king of a nation and not knowing about it? Could you imagine going around and scraping for food and or begging for food or looking for a viaduct to put your cardboard down to find a bed for the night when there's a kingdom waiting for you to take ownership of? And so many of us don't realize who we are. Now, I'm talking really about the kingdom of God, and there's a kingdom perspective as far as that goes, but knowing who we are. John Maxwell says you have to know yourself before you can grow yourself. You have to understand who you are and learn about yourself. And you know, as kingdom people, as from a Christian perspective, we are. Our kingdom is not of this world, but it's set up and established here through us.
Right.
And so, you know, think about having a beautiful, fancy car parked in the garage of your house. You have the keys to it, but you never drive it. But you're entitled to that benefit, so to speak. Now, I'm not talking about cars and having all this luxury and things like that. What I am saying is that we live below our means when it comes to a kingdom mindset, and we live below our means. We think that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or all these other enoughs that we put labels on to basically keep ourselves capped. But we are, the Bible says anyway, that we're more than conquerors. We can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. We are joint heirs with Christ. I mean, all of that. And we just got to understand, if we can identify who we're looking at in the mirror, who God says that we are, then I mean, we're like a running train. Nothing can stop us. That we can be undefeatable even when we fail, even when we make mistakes. Right? We keep pressing toward the mark, that high calling of God in Christ Jesus.
Well, I think one of the other things, in order, if we're going to have a healthy identity, culture of identity, you have to have that before you can even have a clear mission. And let's talk about missions, whether it be a mission statement or purpose. A lot of people in business and in leadership even struggle understanding what their purpose is and having a clear mission. How should someone come about trying to write down or put on paper what the mission is that they're trying to accomplish?
Well, I know for us, when Bert and I were trying to focus on what this leadership company would look like, we kind of put the cart before the horse, and we were looking for logos and trying to come up with a name and all of this stuff before we decided what we were going to exist for, what we were here for, what we were here to do. And so once we stepped back and took a look at that, and actually, because him and I are both pastors, he's an executive pastor at his church in Warren, and I, by the way, am the worship arts pastor here at Evangel, and as well as an associate pastor. But we decided to seek the Lord on what our mission was, on what our goal was, and we began to write that down and flesh that out. And we came up with the desire to train and equip people on their climb, to help them on their growth process, because leadership is always a climb. We're always growing. We're always moving upward. And I like the statement I taught years ago. If you're through growing, you're through. If you're through growing, you're through.
Yeah.
And so we've got to always be growing ourselves and to become better. So that's where our mission statement kind of derived from is training and equipping your client. Having a focus as to what it is that we're doing. What's our purpose for existence? Are we just there to help people? Well, we can help people every day. We can hold the door open for someone. We can, buy somebody some lunch. That's great. But what's the mission of our company? Why do we exist? What makes us different from another company that's going on down the street? And so that's what it's all about.
So basically, just to sum it up for our listeners who may have just be coming in on this, one of the things that Tom is doing with him and his brother-in-law with this company, Real Leadership Company, is really mentoring and leadership development, and to be able to coach people and develop them into the people or the business or ministry that they have envisioned to do. And I'm going to say this to our listeners. If God is, or if you feel that maybe you've got an idea for business, maybe you got an idea and you just have that entrepreneur spirit upon you, and you just really are a go-getter. One of the things that I would ask you to do is to connect yourself with people like Real Leadership Company, on different companies that are out there, maybe to really help you develop who you are as a leader before you try to change the world. Because there are people out there that can help you identify who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and to help you so that you're not learning everything the hard way. I know one of the things that my dad taught me growing up was, he used to say, AC, I had a hard head when I was your age, and nobody could teach me anything. I had to do it myself. He said, please learn from my mistakes. Learn to ask, learn to talk, learn to communicate with people, learn to describe your situation to people so that people that have been there before can give you sound advice. And that's one of the greatest things my dad ever did for me. And to this day, I don't have a problem. I mean, you and I, we get together every couple of weeks and we sit down for lunch and we banter back and forth and just, have great conversation about whether it's business or ministry or our personal lives and just what's going on. And it really just takes a little bit of time like that where I leave there feeling better about myself because I got to talk to someone like you. Because your encouragement towards me and what I see that is going on in your personal life, I'm encouraged. And so to have those type of connections where we are helping one another, the word says iron sharpens iron. In order for that to happen, is the two pieces of iron have to come together and rub. You can't just say, oh, that's my friend, he is encouraging me. Well, if you're not spending time with that person and allowing that person to speak into you and you to speak into them, that does not apply. So I want to encourage some people today that if you're looking to start a business, looking to just take a different role in life and want to be a better leader, maybe on your job, maybe you're wanting to get a different position where you work, but you know that leadership may be a struggle for you and understanding leadership, I encourage you to meet up with these guys and let them walk you through and coach you through developing the leader that's within you. And Tom, give me three things real quick. I'm going to ask you to put you on the spot, but give me three things that you feel has helped contribute to who you are as a leader today. Three things, whether it's people, whether it's scenarios, whether it's books, resources. Give me three things that has helped cultivate you as the leader that you are today.
Okay, and before I begin, thank you for your kind words. And the feelings mutual. I appreciate
you owe me lunch, by the way. So
yes.
So I'm gonna let you get lunch next time.
All right. Sounds like a deal.
I know, right?
Yeah. So three things. There's so many, but I have to go back to my father, Pastor Edwin Ray. he was my main mentor and role model. My dad lived, whoever he was on stage is who he was off stage, and vice versa.
Same with mine.
He just lived a life of integrity in front of me. And I think me and yourself included, that we were fortunate to have such great men that would push through and live that life and that lifestyle in front of us.
Sure.
And you know, I don't know all the personal struggles that my dad had, you know, the personal things that he dealt with, but he was consistent in his life day in and day out, and he provided for our family. He was a good husband, and he loved my mom very much, and he loved the church. He loved Jesus with all of his heart, and so he set this path for me and gave me opportunities to grow. And I'll tell you this, when I was at my dad's church, I became the musician for 2 other churches while remaining at my dad's church. It just so happened that Michael Joyce, as a matter of fact, came and rented space for my dad, and I became his musician, and that's where I got to know him. He moved out and down the street, and then I was playing for him at 9 o'clock in the morning. There's storms going on here right
Same
now.
Same here. I'm waiting. I'm hoping that our electricity doesn't cut out in the middle of our interview. Keep going.
So, like 9 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, I would play for Michael Joyce, and then I would come to my dad's church and play for our service. And then Michael Joyce's brother, Robert Joyce, moved into my dad's building, and I became their musician. And then my father's church, the last service, I was playing 4 services a Sunday with the music. But what's so awesome is I got to work under 3 different leaders without leaving my home church. And my dad could have said, no. Woo. My dad could have said, you're going to stay right here, son. You're going to focus here. Your ministry is here. You know, but he paved the way for me to have a bigger worldview, if you will, and connecting with other people, right, as well as working with other leaders. So I got that training I needed before I even left the nest, and I thank God for that. So that's number one. And I already mentioned Pastor Michael Joyce. I would also mention the books by John Maxwell. Have been so impactful in my life. Not just his books, but his specifically have really touched my life, because his communication style really resonates with me. And I just have to thank him for being my mentor and not knowing it. And then, as I mentioned, my wife, she's been very impactful in my life as well, helping me, teaching me how to love, and teaching me how to take care of and treat other people. She's been pivotal in that. And then lastly, if I can throw a 4th one in there, I'd have to say my current pastor, Pastor Jerry Piscopo, and his wife, Dr. Cheryl Piscopo, have been a great impact and influence on my life. They have been people of integrity, and I have found them to be people that you cannot outgive. They are just servants of the Lord, and they're not perfect people, and they'll tell you they're not, but they are just sold out to Jesus and sold out to the call on their lives, and they're consistent day in and day out to pray and care for the needs and the growth of the people here at our church.
And they're genuine, and I like them both. Sure. Hey, listen, we're going to wrap this up here in just a second, but I want to give you an opportunity. You already shared about John Maxwell's product. You also just showed us another book that you have, Unstuck, that was given to you as part of your collection there. Give me, if you can, I'm putting you on the spot, but give me 2 or 3 really good resources. I know you've given some resources from John Maxwell, and also a book that you were given about being unstuck. But give us a couple, two, three other resources, whether it be books or websites or anything like that, that you think could be beneficial and helpful to those who are looking to develop more in leadership and become a greater leader. Give us some of your resources.
I'd love to. And I think we should all desire to share the information that we have instead of holding it out on people, because our desire should be to see others grow. So I'd like to start with first, and it's kind of self-serving, but my book that I wrote on marriage back in 2013 called A Married Man's Handbook. When I said I do, I meant it. And that book is just to encourage us men to get back in the game, if you will, of being married to our spouse, taking the time with her and to love her and make her feel like she's the only person in our world. Too often we're like cavemen and we go and conquer one thing after the other, and meanwhile our wife sits on a trophy case collecting dust, when we need to not only take her off and dust her off every once in a while, we need to take her out and proudly display her to everyone we come in contact with. And so that book I wrote is just to get us guys moving in that right direction. You know, usually we have this mindset of dating to marry, but it should be the other way around. We should marry to date. We should date regularly. Date our wife, take her out, fall in love again with your first love, and spend time with her and make her feel special and treat her like the queen that she is, whether she's acting like it or not currently. And there's great.
I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Well,
so I don't have that copy of that book either. So you're going to have to get me a signed, autographed copy of that book from Tom Ray.
I might have one here at my desk here. So actually, there is a copy right there. A Married Man's Handbook. It's actually nice and thin.
Good.
So it gives guys into reading right away and finishing it right away. So it's a great book and great resource. Now, in the book, there's lots of other resources, like Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, which is a great book. Another book by, I don't know how to say his name, but the book is called Love and Respect. That is so pivotal. Listen, as far as marriage goes, we have to do our part, right? Mm-hmm. Guys, we have to do our part. Ladies, you have to do your part. But usually we're not doing our part because they're not doing their part. And because they're not doing their part, we're not doing our part. And we've just got to get off that crazy merry-go-round and just decide, you know what, I need to do what I'm supposed to do. And so that's what that book is really about, to encourage people. Actually, the book starts off with this. This book can be summed up with one word: consistency. Whatever you did before you married her, keep doing it. The flowers, going out on dates, holding the door open for her, praying with her, talk with her for hours on the phone, whatever you did, keep on doing it. So that's basically what it really is, just doing life together. So as far as marriage goes, that is a great resource for that. And as I said, the book is filled with other resources. I just read a couple of books this year that have been very powerful to me, and one is Experiencing God by the Black, I'm trying to remember the last name, I can't remember at the moment, but very powerful book that gets you into thinking about where you are as a person or as a leader, mm-hmm. and how we can grow. And then another great book by Francis Chan called Letters to the Church, I believe. Oh, a very sobering book to get us out of the playing church and actually doing this thing for real. So just those have been some great books. I'm actually teaching from a book right now, Training for Reigning by Rick Godwin. And it's a fantastic book to get us into doing the practical things, the natural things. taking care of our business like we're supposed to. And so those have been some great resources, but, just depending on where a person is at and what they need, I have access to or know about, or can at least point some people in the right direction of some great resources. And so that is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple more out there as well before we sign off. This is a book that I've recently picked up, and I'm about halfway into it, and I'm really enjoying it, by Eric Geiger and Kevin Peck, called Design to Lead. Hold that up there for everybody. Design to Lead, and it's for the church and leadership development. And so I want to recommend that one. And then there's a guy that I got turned on to years ago, and he has a bunch of book series called The Spiritual Man. And oh my goodness, it has been very impactful in my life. You don't have to be a religious person to read that book. It is just dealing with who you are as a person, your inner self, mind, body, spirit, and getting it all lined up together. And so I'd recommend anything from Watchman Nee, but The Spiritual Man was definitely one that I would highly recommend for everybody. And then there's another book that I really enjoyed called The Giver. And if anybody out there has ever read that, that's a great book to read as far as being leadership. And I don't know if you can see it in my camera or not, but I've got bookshelves behind me full of books on leadership, and John Maxwell is probably got more books on my shelves than anybody else. But I'm in total agreement with you that John Maxwell is one of the leaders in the industry when it comes to helping to develop you as a person and as a leader. Well, listen, Tom,
Absolutely.
I know that we are dealing with weather conditions, and you're I think probably as the crow flies, we're probably about 10 miles apart, but where you're at and where I'm at right now. And I'm going to sign off here in just a second, but I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming on Young Lions podcast and talk show. And I'd love to do this again one time, maybe get your brother-in-law on, and just to see maybe a few months down the road how things are developing for the company and what we can do to have you guys be more involved. Listen, Tom, I love you, man. I appreciate you coming on board with us today. Again, tell us your website for the listeners.
It's realleadershipcompany.com. And you can find all of our resources there. In fact, one of the other resources is John Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. That happens to be the book that we're using for the mastermind. And I believe in the future here, we're going to be absolutely using other of his books. And he's got some 100 books that are written, and 31 million books have been sold. I mean, so he's no small deal. He's been around, and he's definitely learned the practices of leadership. And while we are connected with John Maxwell and certified through him, we also have our own desire to touch people and equip people and encourage people and see them grow to the next level. And that's GROW, grow to the next level.
Awesome. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. For all of our listeners, don't forget you can watch this podcast on our YouTube channel, Young Lions. You can also listen to it on the website and see all of our resources at www.younglionswithaz.com. And maybe we can even throw a link up for the Real Leadership Company.com on our website, so you guys can go directly to their source as well. I'll talk with Tom about that. Listen, everybody, we appreciate you being on with us today and listening to this podcast on leadership. We hope that it's been a great blessing and a help to somebody today. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions. You know where to get a hold of Tom. You know where to get a hold of me at younglions.com. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening today on Young Lions Podcast and Talk Show. God bless.
Thank you.